Welcome to Wei and Cathy Show. I'm your host, Wei Fang.
I'm Cathy Zhang.
The Supreme Court has finished its 8-day the whirlwind of rulings on the 5 major issues, which really shocked the nation. This is the one topic I want to bring to you. Our question is this: who is the person who plays the most role for this round of rulings? And we'll review what we discovered.
And I did an interview with a very, very big guy, and you may already guessed who he is, and so how he feels about losing job for speaking out, and how he feels about the Chinese government, and so on and so forth, and also what is his plan.
All right, thank you for being with us tonight. I have to apologize first that we have to skip 2 programs before. One reason is, what is that reason, Cathy? On the road.
Oh, so I play a big role here.
So Cathy has been traveling across the country, and that's part of the reason that we couldn't carry it on. The other reason is really, because I'm also here now I'm in the East Coast, okay? Very, very busy lately, so couldn't quite keep it up with, especially just with myself. So we have to apologize with you for that, but the good news is Cathy's here. And so what's the most takeaway from your trip to, 4-day, 5 days trip?
5-day trip.
What's the most, impression for this trip?
Yeah, so one thing I think if you take a notice of my posting is the gas price. From the most expensive place, San Francisco, moving to the East Coast. Indeed, when I saw the gas price at $4.59, I was like, it's so cheap. Can you imagine that? Just 2 years ago, we were at $2 something.
$2.18.
Okay. Yeah, so that's just, I know, everybody knows we all feel the gas price at your own state, but just going through the states by states and seeing for myself, it's just, it's quite experience. The other thing really impressed me is just, America is just such a beautiful country. I just loved it. And, I have some colleagues driving with me together, right? Mm-hmm. And most of them came from China not long ago, and they were just so impressed, and myself too. Each state and the landscaping just different, and we were talking about from the Golden State in California, right? It's all yellow, in the mountain, and go to the desert. Okay, like Las Vegas area, right? And then going to Arizona, which those the rocks, it has all the patterns, red rock, and just amazing. And then you drove to Nebraska, especially Colorado. If you ask me which state I love the most on this road, I would say it's Colorado.
Wow.
So beautiful. We went through, passed by the ski resorts. Not exactly the ski resorts, but we saw that in a Vail. It's just amazing. The picture we took is just unreal, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
Surreal.
Yeah, and then the landscape just changed going to as we drove by after Colorado was next. Now I kind of lost track. It just
Nebraska,
and then more like a flat area. Into the Midwest. Okay, Illinois, Iowa is like my hometown, right? So then the landscape kind of keeps the same, almost very similar. But I would say. The most impressive thing for me is it's just the different landscaping, and it's just a beautiful country, beautiful country.
Did you hear your heart sing the song from the mountain to the prairies? Wow, you make me feel jealous. I need to go back and do this same trip again myself.
Yeah, and as we pass by, I try to look up, some things I know, but some of the place I don't know. But by just looking up the history, it's just I learn a lot. And my friends, colleagues came with me. They said, "Wow, we just learned so much about America." So, and that gives us actually a new idea of doing another show about America.
Okay, so we'll do that another time. Otherwise,
Yes.
we'll never finish the show tonight.
I know.
And Larry, yeah, thank you. Good to see you too tonight. And the book, you are from Kansas. Did you pass Kansas by any chance?
Kansas,
I don't
not
think so.
Exactly, no.
Yeah, I think you drive north of Kansas, right?
Right.
So you won't be able to pass in Kansas, but maybe next time take another route. But it's always great, to see this great country, the great plain, and appreciate the God-given country, and also, of course, the freedom that comes with it. Well, through the effort and the fight of our forefathers, right? So so today let's talk about the Supreme Court's case, and as you know, that starting last Thursday through this Thursday, the Supreme Court delivered 5 major rulings. Okay, and the Supreme Court struck down the New York gun law, which require somebody who wanted to conceal carry has to ask the permission of police, and that's unconstitutional. And that's the first one. The second one is, of course, overturning Roe v. Wade. And the third one is the Washington football coach, okay, Joseph Kennedy, and the rulings that he has right to pray on the football field after the game. And that's the school prayer issue. And the fourth one, of course, is the EPA that was delivered just yesterday. The EPA ruling. This is very, very major one. Okay, pretty much pulling the teeth out of the EPA now, as they try to do the national revamping, okay, of all the power grid, and that's a big matter. Okay, I don't know how you think. Okay, please just share how you think. And which ruling do you think carry the most significance? Of course, the fifth one has to do with the Supreme Court ruling for Biden's homeland security, okay, and against Trump's stay in Mexico. And for that particular one, it does not make a lot of impact because one way or the other, okay, the situation is much smaller. Out of possibly 200,000 or even more, 300, 400,000 illegal immigrants crossing the border into the U.S. As of now, only 4,600 illegal immigrants were sent back in Mexico to wait for their asylum case. So it's a very, very minute situation. All right, so one way or the other, it doesn't matter that much. But the first 4 cases are really just what do you call it? Country shaking, earth shaking. But that's the major thing that happened. I don't know whether you have been kept up with that. And anyway, so today I just want to very briefly tell about a particular Supreme Court judge, and the lone judge, Clarence Thomas. Okay, and his story, because out of this judgment, okay, Clarence Thomas played a big role, and like in the Roe v. Wade, John Roberts sort of like he did not approve of overturning Roe v. Wade. So Clarence Thomas was leading there with the Alito and then Gorsuch and the Kavanaugh and the Barrett. Okay, they were the 5-4 ruling, and basically just reverting a 49-year-old precedent ruling. Okay, that's how significant it is. And so let me just tell you what's a commentator, okay? And his word, his name is let me see. He's Trump administration management and budget office, okay, general counsel. His name is Mark Pauletta. Let me just read it to you. He said, after 30 years, Clarence Thomas, after receiving so much attack, and he's not just standing strong, his influence is at its zenith, okay? And then he basically said he lead the other conservative judges, and through the courage has shown in his jurisprudence, and create this this line of unbelievable rulings. And Clarence Thomas, actually, he was born in 1948 in a city called Savannah of Georgia. Actually, he's a very poor one, not a wealthy one at all. But when he went to college, he went to College of the Holy Cross, okay, in Boston, 40 miles west of the Boston. Then he went to the law school of the Yale University. At the age of 26, he was appointed Assistant Attorney General of the state of Missouri. All right, and in 1981, when he was 33, that was the Reagan administration, he was appointed the Assistant Secretary for the Civil Rights at the U.S. Department of Education. Then anyway, so 9 years later, he was appointed by George H.W. Bush as the D.C. Appeal Court judge. 1 year later, he succeeded the first black judge in the justice in the Supreme Court, Thurgood Marshall, and become the second black justice on the Supreme Court. And that change is very, very, attention-catching, or is very, very, serious matter, because Thurgood Marshall was a strong liberal, and Clarence Thomas was a strong conservative. Okay, at that time, if you still remember, if you're old enough, and there was a female professor, Anita Hill. She came forth and saying that charged Thomas with the sexual harassment. Okay, that just incurred a lot of turmoil in the hearing. But anyway, so after a long and a difficult period of hearing, and the Senate approved his appointment to the Supreme Court by 52-48.
Well, it sounds like very similar to what happened to Kavanaugh.
You know how similar? And Anita and Hill was just a female professor, and Christine Ford, if you still remember, was also just female professor. Both has pretty very well respected career and academic career. And in both cases, there are four ladies charging the two judges, or Thomas or the Kavanaugh, four ladies. Anyway, so of course, both Thomas and Kavanaugh was really feel indignant as a response to it. So after he was appointed to the Supreme Court justice, and he was receiving attacks and all the time. And what's special about Thomas is that he never hold back. Okay, he keep writing about the case that he believes is wrong, and especially the Roe v. Wade case. And that was literally a political taboo, right? Mm-hmm. And because it was passed in 1973, it was everybody think that's it, but he keeps saying that that's not right. Okay, we need to change that. We need to revert that. And among all the characteristics that Thomas has, he always urged overruling and joined in overruling proceedings. Okay, this is his original word. Okay. When I'm talking about keeping the tradition of honoring the precedents versus the principle of the Constitution, this is what Clarence Thomas wrote. He said, when faced with a clash of constitutional principle and a line of unreasoned cases wholly divorced from the text, history, and structure of our founding document, we should not hesitate to resolve the tension in favor of the Constitution's original meaning. All right. So now, after 30 years, he's not destroyed. He became the leading figure in the Supreme Court, and so in the New York gun case, he's the opinion writer. And in the Bobs versus the Jackson Women's Health Organization, which also overturned Roe v. Wade, and he designated Justice Alito to write the opinion. So he's very, very influential now. And what he advocates the most is this originalism of the basic Constitution, right? Which we'll understand. So what do you think? This is the brief history of Clarence Thomas, and he's the second black justice there. He has been holding firm under whatever kind of adverse situation. He has always been himself.
And it's noteworthy that he received death threats for drafting the opinion overturning Roe v. Wade, right?
Yeah.
And he just persisted.
So yeah, anyway, so I spent a lot of time actually in my Chinese show explaining this originalism, which I assume that you already know that. So I won't, just bother. I won't spend your time there. But next we're gonna move to a very big guy, a big figure that Cathy met at DC. And Cathy, why did you go to DC?
Yeah, that's just a few days ago. There is an International Religious Freedom Summit held in DC from June 28th to the 30th. So it's a 3-day event. It's the second round of such international religious freedom. It was held by this International Religious Freedom Roundtable. It was established originally in the Trump administration.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and
by Senator Brownback.
Mm-hmm. The first ambassador for this group is Senator Sam Brownback, and he is the co-chair of the summit. The other co-chair is Miss Katrina Lantos Sweet, which is who is the daughter of the late
Thomas Lantos,
congressman from California. So
very respectable person.
Right, it's actually a bipartisan effort. So because it is, seeing that in terms of the religious freedom, both parties are for it. So, and Enes Kanter Freedom, he was invited as a keynote speaker for the summit. And I was, it's really a nice surprise to be able to interview him for a few minutes. And so it's just amazing to see him in person and talk to him. And so...
What's amazing about?
Well, he's so tall.
Okay.
As you can see in the picture, he's just so tall. All right. But I think it's, it really makes you feel he's a real person when he just basically lost his MBA job for speaking up.
For millions of dollars.
Yeah.
Every year.
Yeah, but he just, for him, the first thing I asked him, do you regret? Do you have any regret? And he said, no regret whatsoever. He had no hesitation for just doing what he is doing now. And so he made some announcement and talked about his feeling about the Chinese government. So it's although it's a short interview, but he revealed a lot of information. So, but before showing the interview, I wanted to share with you a brief story on him by just because I was interviewing him after other media. So I also overheard some of his story he was sharing. So Enes Kanter Freedom, he said he was born in Israel, to a Turkey parents, and he had a tough childhood in Turkey. He remembered in the age of 8 to 9, he was playing with friends, right? Friends at the childhood. And then the friends were burning American flags.
Wow.
And Israeli flags. And saying, oh, those are Americans, Israelis are evil, things like that. So he was so frightened and surprised. So he ran upstairs to his mom and telling his mom what happened. And he said, my friends told me, I have to hate Americans, hate Israelis, and hate Christians. What should I do? And his mom said, I won't tell you what you should do, but you never hate anyone. All right. So then comes to fast forward to age of 17. Enes Kanter Freedom, he came to the United States and went, for high school. And once he landed on this soil of the free world, he said he actually was very nervous, very scared.
Okay.
Yeah, because of his childhood, right? People told him, Americans are evil, right? So then he was playing basketball while studying in the high school, and one day his teammate in the locker room was criticizing the president, United States president, and he was so scared. And he asked his friend, like,
How dare he?
how dare you, maybe you would one day just take you away and jail you. So his teammate just laughed and, trying to explain to him, in the United States, there's freedom of speech, freedom of religion, freedom of media. So you don't have to be scared. You can say anything you want. So from that, he's starting to learn about the value of the freedom. So then, he was playing for NBA for like 11 years, right? And from the, remembering his experience back in Turkey, then to the United States, in the high school, he just felt, what he experienced, and it should be shared with anyone in the world. Anyone in the world should be able to have such freedom. So that's why he always kept a focus on the human rights, right? But I asked him, when did you realize you have to really to be so high profile to speak up? So he told me that one time he was attending a student's basketball camp. A parent of the student there just went up to him and saying, how could you say yourself as a human rights activist? In the meantime, you don't really know what's going on. So he felt embarrassed, and he went back to the hotel, did some research by himself, and told his managers, he wants to learn more about that. So he really just took very down to earth, and he did research, and then he decided, I have to speak out. So that's when he started to openly criticize the Chinese Communist government's massive and systematic persecution of the people in China, especially the Uyghurs. And on the social media, we can all see that, and the rest is the history, right? So for that, he was excluded, sidelined by the NBA. Earlier this year, when they had when they had this a player trade deadline, he was, traded from the Boston Celtics to Houston Rockets. But then, immediately the Rockets just waived him. So he now is becoming a free agent of NBA. So Ernest said he indeed, to be frank, he is on a very lonely road. He tried to talk to his, teammates and things like that. He said if anyone speaks on the human rights of the Chinese government, he has to face the consequence, as he did. But he said he has no regrets and never hesitated. I asked him why NBA not only shied away from speaking out, against the Chinese Communist government's human rights record, but also even just silenced him, excluded him. And his answer, what his answer? He said because they are all bought by the Chinese government. They care too much about their next paycheck. They care too much about how their clothes or the shoes are selling in China. So then I asked him, in his opinion, how to really deal with the authoritarian regime like the Chinese government. Let's take a lesson.
And not just NBA, you look at Hollywood, you look at Wall Street, academia, big tech, and Congress, local companies, unfortunately being bought by the Chinese government. And what they need to do is morals, principles, and values is way more important than money and business. So they need to, stand up for what's right.
And so for yourself, what's your plan?
Well, what's my plan? I'm just going to continue to talk about the important things that are happening, not just in China, but around the world, because people need a voice. And I am trying to be the voice of all those innocent people out there who don't have a voice. That's why I created my foundation, Enes Kanter Freedom Foundation. It focuses on human rights, democracy, freedom, social harmony, and poverty elevation around the globe.
What do you think what's the biggest threat right now in the world to the freedom that people like you pursue?
Dictatorships and uneducated people. I feel like we have to educate ourselves so we can stand up for these dictatorships. But authoritarianism is on the rise, and we need to do whatever we can to, amplify the good, amplify the message of good. So I think people need to stop, the world leaders, the Muslim leaders, G7 leaders, or Western leaders needs to stop condemning and start taking some actions, because enough is enough. It's important to put some legislation out there, some bills out there, and put as much as pressure we can on Chinese government. There has been already some sanctions, but those are not enough. We need some stronger sanctions. And other than that, we need to use Magnitsky Act to this some of the officials in Chinese government.
What do you think of the Chinese government's dictatorship? Some people say that's the biggest threat, but some people may think otherwise. What's your thought?
There are many dictatorships out there, but when you look at the world right now, Chinese government, Chinese dictatorship is definitely the most brutal and the biggest dictatorship, a biggest threat in the world right now.
And what would you like to say to our fellow Chinese people who's under the persecution right now?
I want to say my problem is not with the Chinese people. My problem is with the Chinese government. There's a difference. We have to free China. We have to wake people up in China, because it is so important to people in China to understand, to stand up for what's right. Because if everyone in China educated themselves and stand up for what's right, the Chinese government will fall.
For your fans, it may not be able to see you playing basketball now. What do you like to say to them?
I love them, and they've been supportive of me my whole career. I really appreciate them, and I cannot thank you guys enough. But this is we are a team, and I'm in this together, and I got your back. Don't worry. And I love you guys, and hope to see you guys at one of my games maybe soon.
What's your plan in your career now, like playing the basketball?
Well, I'm 30 years old, and they're pushing me to retire at the age of 30, but I do not want to retire. I want to continue to play basketball because I'm young and I can't play under 5-6 years, but we'll see how NBA responds to that.
All right, so that's Enes Kanter Freedom. So, he's really very straightforward, right? Stop condemning. It just doesn't really do much, and start taking actions. So that's his message. And he also pointed out, indeed, the Chinese Communist regime is the most brutal and the biggest threat to the freedom. So what do you think?
Yeah, I think this is another great American. Okay, it's just from Clarence Thomas to Enes Freedom. Okay, we're seeing two great Americans, right?
Right.
Yeah, one is born here, another just new first generation. But it's the same, the culture and the freedom and this great country shaped them.
Yeah, and you can see he's very humble. He said the first thing, is self-education.
Mm-hmm.
He started with that, right? He self-educated about what really the Chinese government did to persecute people's human rights, and then he started to take action.
Yeah.
So when I asked him, what's the big threat, and he actually said one is the dictatorship, second is uneducated people. So I think he's right to the point.
Yeah.
And it's so important to educate ourselves first, to really understand the nature of the dictatorship, the authoritarians, and the Chinese communist regime. And then you will know how to deal with that. So, yeah, that's my takeaway.
Yeah, I think it's, when walking away from millions of dollars or even tens of millions of dollars for your principle, that's very, very respectable. And I have a great admiration for this young man, and I hope that he will get the best result. Just like, Clarence Thomas, right? We're talking about 31 years ago, he was, he faced a lot of attack. Right. Of course, he got his tenure, his whole life tenure. And that's what a Supreme Court justice is. But still, he faced a lot of threat.
Yeah. Well, some people would waver, right? But he never really, he stick to his principle.
Yeah, I think this country is full of people like Thomas and Freedom, and with people like this, America will never sink. What do you think? Okay, yeah, I see you guys a little quiet. I think the reason is, we were Actually, we were absent, but we're back. And okay, and Marashi wrote that awesome guy, a great freedom fighter, my man. All right.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Wendy Kwan said respect.
Yep.
Yeah, Marish said a true great American. God bless him.
Yep. And Maricino, USA, you said with his well-known around the world, Enes Kanter should run for political office. I think what I mean. So as to wake up the more and more Americans and the people around the world.
Yeah, I think actually it's probably in his plan.
Is that
because
right?
yeah,
Wow.
he announced that as he did in my interview, he just started a foundation, right? But from other interviews, he also kind of, said that he would consider running for office.
Yeah. Well, this guy is only 30.
Yeah.
Got another 50 years to go. He could go very far, and let's hope that he will go very, very high too. Yeah. So, yeah, it's great. At the International Religious Summit, what I met is those people, who dedicate their life to helping other people. Dedicate their life to the belief that they hold on, and very respectable people there. And American, I think it's really it's at a time that each of us needs to test our loyalty or our dedication to the principles, right? Yeah.
Yeah, and I also interviewed another great person. He's the Lord David Elton from the UK. He's very clear-minded. He went through the Cold War. He saw what the former Soviet Union, how it was, and it's same thing. I think two things, two observations are exactly the same between Enes Kanter Freedom and the Lord David Elton. One is that they think the Chinese Communist regime just use the money to buy out everywhere.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, and the second is they all believe the biggest threat in the world right now is the Chinese Communist regime. So they when I interview them, they say the same thing, exactly the same thing, and they just believe also that now people are really waking up. So
Okay, so it's great to have you guys with us.
And Holly said that we need more like him.
Yeah.
That's exactly.
Yeah. Maricino, you wrote that he's a great fighter. Not everyone think money is the only thing that matters. Yes, that's the value. That's the value we need. And I was talking to my Chinese program about this originalism, right? About the Constitution. I indeed mentioned about that. What is the very origin? Okay, when the founding fathers wrote the Constitution, and where they draw the wisdom from? They drew from the basically the ancient script and ancient Israelis and ancient Anglo-Saxon and the Greece and the Rome and the great crystallization of the Western civilization. Okay, so over the time we lost them, right? Those values every day. We can get richer or we got the better technology, better iPhone, but our value, our ideas, our morals degrade over the time, and this is why we are here today. So we need to go back to the origin, right? The originalism. Go back to the origin, and refine ourselves and refine the root of our country. And,
right, and just think of what happened in China, the lockdowns in Shanghai, right? And made a lot of people realize, money just, under such kind of authoritarian regime, money, those material things can just evaporate just all overnight.
Or the money cannot get you the food of next day at the lockdown time. And there was then another story I want to tell you. This is the first this is the online shopping. The online shopping is the scale of the online shopping is way beyond those in America. Okay.
In China, you mean?
In China, yes, in China. So one particular guy was, he has like 170 million followers. Okay, his name is Li Jiaqi. Okay, and this young man, Li Jiaqi, went through a lot of difficulty to get to attain to the status that he has today, but just because he was, just demonstrating a cake, and he was a little, not, I guess, naughty, so he made the cake into the tank shape. And on the eve of the June 4th tank crackdown of the student movement in Beijing in 1989, so he got shut down, and since then it is almost 1 month. He disappeared. He can make tens of millions of dollars. He got 170 million followers, fans. He just got disappeared just overnight. Never came back. Yeah. So when you don't have freedom, you don't have guarantee of anything. No matter how much money you have, that could disappear just overnight. They throw you into jail, or they just shut you down, and then you have no place to go. There's no court who will listen to you, because everything, the court, the police, and the so-called People's Assembly, they all listen to one place, which is the party. This is what dictatorship is about. So again, we appreciate very much where we are today and the freedom we enjoy today, including this opportunity that we talk to you in a free and fear-free way. So
yeah, and there are more and more people just like Enes Kanter Freedom, just like Americino said, I'm glad CCP cannot buy him.
Yeah.
More and more people cannot be bought.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because people really starting to realize what's the true value, they should adhere to.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, yeah, thank you for staying with us. And out on a limb, you wrote, thank you for covering the stories of what true patriotism means on this 4th of July weekend. Yes. 4th of July is coming, and for me, I'll be preparing 2 or 3 episodes, okay, in Chinese for my Chinese immigrants, okay, the first generation, people like me. We want them to learn about the value and the history and the greatness of this America, so that they become true Americans. And it's taking effect. They love us. They literally love us. They follow our show and they love us. And they learn a lot of things about America. So I'll be continuing doing that.
Yeah, I think, for new immigrants like us, we really needed to learn the true history of the United States, the greatness of it. So that's why we love doing what we are doing, trying to convey what we learned with our audience, right? Yeah. Mm-hmm. And like Enes Kanter Freedom, self-education. This is also another type of self-education. We really need to learn about why this great country is so great.
Mm-hmm. All right, thank you. Have a great night. And what's more important is have a great 4th of July.
Yes.
Happy birthday, America.
All right.
All right,
Take care.
Bye-bye.